Welcome back to the channel. I am really glad you're here because today I want to talk about rototillers for your compact tractor. Now first off, if you're going to get a rototiller for your tractor, get a quick hitch. You will thank me 100 times over because without a quick hitch, you will fight to line up this rototiller and get it hooked up onto your 3-point hitch. They're bulky, they're heavy, they're awkward, and the quick hitch just makes it so much easier. So there are various makes and models of rotary tillers, rototillers, rear tillers, whatever you want to call them. But anyway, you can get lots of different brands. I happen to have the Land Pride RGA1258, and even within Land Pride, they have different sizes, different models, different types of tillers as far as the rotation of the tines. So I'm going to talk to you about the RGA1258, why I chose this tiller. Maybe the right one for you, or maybe another one would be the right one for you, but I'll at least demonstrate this one and show you some of the features that it has and why I chose it. So I'm running the RGA1258 tiller on my Kubota B2601 compact tractor. So you could probably figure out that the 58 in the RGA1258 means that it's 58 inches wide. So it's about a 5-foot wide rototiller, and the RGA tells you that it is the forward rotation tine. They make an RGR, and the RGR is the reverse rotation tine, and there are benefits to both of those, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. And also in that model number, the RG, well, the G is gear drive. They also make a chain drive, which I think is the RTA, but the RG is a gear drive model. I've heard from people that they have not had a bad experience with chain drive rototillers. I guess you could worry that the chain could stretch in time, it could break in time. I don't know, I mean, gear drive seems better, but again, I've heard that the chain drive tillers are really reliable too, so I wouldn't get hung up on that. What I want to do today too is show you this in operation and show you essentially under the hood a little bit, and we'll do some tilling. All right, let's prop this back open. This cover on the back serves a bit of a dual purpose. If you leave it propped open and you till, you'll have bigger clumps of soil, and that can help aerate the soil a little bit more, help it dry out of its damp soil. And then if you close it, which most of the time I run it with the door or the flap closed, and what that does, that basically keeps the dirt inside the tiller longer. It's like a blender. Blends up the dirt, makes it more of a fine powder, and also this flap runs against the back and kind of drags it as you go along. It makes for a really nice finish. Underneath there are 7 sets of tines. There are 6 tines on each one of those hubs. I don't know if I'm using the exact correct terminology, but that's what you have under there. I've had this about 2 years now. You can see the edges are starting to round off a bit, but they're still relatively sharp. They're holding up really well because I've done quite a bit of tilling with this thing. Now, what about forward rotation versus reverse rotation? I'll tell you, I lost sleep trying to decide what I wanted for my tractor. And the reason I chose this one mostly is because that's what my dealer recommended. If you have a good, trustworthy dealer, you can trust their judgment. They know really what's best for the size tractor and the model tractor that you have. But there are pros and cons to both forward rotation and reverse rotation. First of all, reverse rotation, from what I understand, does a much better job on that initial first pass because it's actually working against the tractor, so it's digging in deeper and just does a better job with that first pass. The con is, of course, it's fighting the tractor. It's trying to pull one direction, the tractor's trying to pull in the other direction. It can be a lot of work for that tractor. Now with the forward rotation, obviously it's not fighting the tractor, it's actually helping propel that tractor just a little bit. But one of the cons is it doesn't do as good of a job on that first pass. I've noticed, especially this time of year, after we've gotten past the wet spring and now the ground is hard and dry and the roots are established with the grass and the weeds, that this sometimes has to be used 3, 4, 5 times on a row to really get a good chopped up powdery soil. That first pass, it may just ride on top that first time and barely get through. I don't mind because I don't have a whole lot of property here, but it does take some time going back and forth. But I love using it, so again, I don't mind. Another big, I think, pro for forward rotation, if you live in an area with a rocky soil, reverse rotation can pick up a rock or a stone and it can jam inside the tiller, or it can mess up your, if you have a friction clutch like I have here, if you have a pin, it'll break the pin. So if you have forward rotation and you hit a rock or a stone or a piece of metal in the ground, it'll tend to bounce right over it. And I've seen that happen. Even though I don't live in an area with rocky soil, I have hit things and I've seen it where it bounces over top of that and didn't cause any problem at all. So you have to weigh the pros and cons. I can tell you also, with this forward rotation, the way that it does try and help the tractor move along, once it gets down into the ground, it's still hard to pull. I've got to use low gear and four-wheel drive sometimes to pull this through, or I'll just spin. So it was the right choice for this tractor. I'd say talk to your dealer. If you could choose between listening to me talk about the tiller or watching it in action, which would you choose? I thought so. Now here's a great example of a dog, but also a great example of, on the right hand side here, you've got one pass with the tiller, and over here on the left side is 2 passes. So it doesn't take too much. Once it breaks through, it does a really, really nice job. Right, Hotch? Hey, before we finish up, let's take the time to talk about some tiller tips. How's that sound? Pretty good? So with my tiller, I run the tractor at 540 RPM at the PTO, which is basically full throttle on this tractor. I also keep four-wheel drive engaged, and I use low gear, and I go relatively slow. You want to give that tiller time to churn up that dirt inside. So there's your tiller talk for today. I do love that tiller. It is still one of my all-time favorite attachments. Well, I'm going to finish tilling up this little plot here. We're going to plant some corn. I hope it's not too late in the season. We may have missed our window of opportunity. If so, we can throw down some wildflowers because they grow like weeds and they're really pretty. So I hope you found this helpful. I know it was just a basic overview of the Land Pride RGA 1258 tiller, and we talked about some of the differences between forward rotation and reverse rotation. So again, I hope you found it helpful, but talk to your dealer, do your research, and pick the right tiller for you. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next time.